Hello, I've been asked by a lot of people regarding these what I call coffin borders, which are really difficult. For ones for full sun. Hello, I'm Rosy Hardy. This is Rosy Hardy Gardening. So for full sun, really free draining soil in these horrible little narrow borders that is what you've been left with by the builders, or just a bit that you've got and you can't do anything else with, then really you need to be looking at alpines. Alpines are the things which are used to harsh environments, and they will do so much better. The majority of time they're in quite arid climates, they're quite high up, so they're hardy, they grow on rocky stony ground, so which is probably what you've got. Now in front of me here are just a small selection of things that I would suggest you try starting off with, and that is things that tend to be mound forming. They tend to be succulent, but ones which are able to cope with the drier conditions. So we have a Sedum, we have an Antennaria, we have an Orostachys, we have a Lithodora, we have a Thyme, we have a Lonicera, and we have a Saxifraga. Now most of these are going to make mounds. They will all have flower at some time, but they're grown for their shape and the fact that they will cover and make beautiful shapes. Now I would suggest you start off with this type of arrangement because it's easier to do, and then you're not going to be disappointed if you don't get lots and lots of flower. Now we can add in flower, and that is possible, but start by getting the ideas first. And if you have got that area and you have got the possibility of going up just a little bit by improving what it is that you've got there, leaving the really horrible, more stony, grotty ground as the under subsoil, and then adding probably a gritty soil mix to the top of that, even by adding 5 centimeters of extra, that will just help the plants establish, and it'll help you grow a few more, because once their roots get down into the rocky bits, they'll find their way. It's just giving them that helping hand when you put them in. So we have a beautiful little Saxifraga here. It is tiny, really tiny. It's going to have little white flowers up the top of it, but it's great in free draining full sun. It's not going to get huge, but what you will get is you'll get this beautiful round mat, which is this evergreen, evergrey foliage. So it's always going to show up. So it's going to be looking good all year round. That is the first one there. Then I've got a little tiny Lonicera nitida. This one's called Twiggy. Twiggy doesn't get much more than a foot high, and that is in good condition. So in slightly poorer conditions, she'll stay a little bit smaller. But that's quite good. Got a slightly golden tint to the foliage, lovely burgundy reverses and stems. So interest. There isn't any real flower on this. It's not going to be a flowering form, but it is a shrub. So it's going to make you a lovely little mound. Nice evergreen mound. Lonicera nitida Twiggy. So that's going to be up and that's going to be flat. Then this is one of the really good ground hugging thymes, and this one is Thymus serpyllum minor, and it's got gorgeous little lilac flowers, and it's going to be covered. It'll make a little cushion of lilac flowers, but it's got hairy leaves, so it just stays out. Can be a little bit deciduous, but this one is great. It's just going to hug the ground and look really cute. So you are going to get contrasts as you go through. So you've got flat mound white, you've got a little bit higher, you've got a little lower, and purple. And then this one, Lithodora, heavenly blue. Now this can get much larger, but if you have it in a slightly drier place, it will just make a mound, and it has beautiful gentian blue flowers. So that again is going to get a little bit taller, so that is good. Then you've got this one, the Orostachys, which looks a little bit like some of the other succulents you get, but it's got these larger outer leaves here, and then this amazing centre, and it's putting on its little pups here at the side. So this one again is going to go around, so it looks slightly different. It looks a little bit cactusy, and this loves free draining, really free draining. It'll take cold, but it doesn't like the wet. So really free draining all year round. That's what that wants. That one might require something like a little cloche going over it if you know you're going to have a wet spell, because it really doesn't want to get rain into it, but it's long as you've put it into really gritty mix, it will be absolutely fine. Goes down to quite a low temperature as well because it's from high elevation, so it's not going to get huge. But that's a cute one. Then you have the Antennaria here, and this one is Antennaria dioica, Antennaria dioica Rubra. Again, this, as you can see, is going to creep around. This does have red flowers, so they're a little bit like your straw flower when they come out. Lovely little red bubbles, so that's great across this grey foliage. Grey foliage is always good, so this is going to spread and make a good mound, so that will creep its way through, so that's quite nice. And you'll probably be able to split that as well at a later time, or even take the odd cutting off it. So if you enjoy propagation, you can do that. And if you enjoy propagation, just take a look at the link below. Now that is great. That one will, as I say, meander through as well. And then we have this wonderful Sedum hispanicum here, and this is just like a tight ball, but this is fabulous. This has lovely little pale pink flowers on it. A little bit later on in the season, but it's just going to make a mound. And although you've got quite a lot of mounding plants here, you can see with the structures of them all, they're all going to look just slightly different, and they are all slightly different coloured flowers. So you've got pink, you've got reddy colour, this one is a buff colour, blue, you've got purple there, that doesn't flower, and then that's got white, and then you've got completely contrasting foliage. So this is what you've got to look at, contrasting foliage, and I would put them at a reasonable point where you need to allow them to have space to grow. If they don't get much bigger and they're much slower, then you can pop something else in. So start with them spaced out, and I would suggest the sort of spacing I've got here. So this is somewhere around from centre of plant to centre of plant, you are looking at just about shoulder width. So centre of plant to centre of plant, shoulder width. Even with these small little babies, it's the same as I say with the herbaceous, but even with these small ones, because with alpines, and the trick with these is giving them the negative space, because one of these will stay really small, one will get big. That's when you get your contrasts, and that is how to start off, because then if you suddenly find you've got a hole here, well, you find something else that's small and you put it in there, maybe one of the smaller flowering ones. So start off with them quite spaced, and then add in as they mature and as they grow and as you understand how they grow. Once you've become really happy with how everything is growing in your sunny coffin border, and you've got your foliage plants and then you've got your odd gaps, how about starting to put in a little bit of flowering alpine material that is going to give you a bit more colour in there and just give you an odd spot of colour at different times. So let's start off with a Chaenorhinum. And this one is Origanifolium Blue Dream. Now this looks a little bit like a foxglove, but it isn't. It's got a beautiful flower here. It's a lilac with a white eye, and it flowers continually through the summer. But do keep deadheading it, so you can deadhead back, because it will flower and flower and flower. In better soils, it's a bit bigger, but in the poorer, sunnier soils, this will just be a mound, and it's absolutely adorable with these lilac purple flowers here. Really great fun. So once you've got something like this one just about finishing, cut it back, it'll send up some new. So just keep on trimming it every now and again, and that's absolutely fine. So again, that's full sun. Then we have the, here we have the Anathyllus Wahlenbergia, and this one is cochineal. Cochineal because it's got these beautiful orange-red flowers on it, and it's a pea-type family. And this just makes a flat mat and flowers quite well. Now this can struggle a little bit if it gets a little bit too hot, but again, it's one of those things you can give it a quick haircut back and then it'll come back up through. So this is really sweet, and it's worthwhile trying with it because it is a lovely thing. Once established, it's much better than when it starts. So bear with it, because it will need a little bit of attention, and it'll be a little bit of one of those children that requires a little bit more of attention than the others, but worthwhile, because once it's got itself established and in and settled in the border, it will flower really well. That's a Mediterranean plant. Then this one is a Jasione. This is Jasione montana, White Delight. And this is going to get up to nearly a foot, if not a bit more, and sprill out like this. Beautiful, almost scabious-like flowers in a pure white on this. And again, it's something that flowers and flowers and flowers. So once you've got a flower going over, give it a haircut and it will be fine. This is something from high mountain ranges, and when it's in a drier bed and not so well fed, it may not be as big as it is in a container, but they will all be fine. Now, the one thing I haven't said about this is when you are potting these up and you're putting them into the actual ground, then make sure, you can see this has got grit all over the top of it because that's how alpines tend to be potted up. You'll see it's got a lot of root at the bottom and it's root here. You need to tease these out a bit, or you can give them a little bit of a haircut and then make sure the hole is deep enough for them. Now, if your borders are not as deep as that, as these plants are, you can just pull the roots out and flatten them out so that you compress it. Don't try and compress it as it is. Tear it open and then put it down, and you'll reduce it by half. You can take a bit off. They won't mind a little bit of root pruning, but I would not do that to a plant that this is this big. If you're going to be planting it in, buy it earlier. If you're going to put it into this sort of really horrible, nasty space, then you would need to cut back all of this. You then trim up the roots, put it in and make sure it's going. So do remember, when you're planting is also key as to how well these plants do. But that is just something. So you could buy them when you see them, keep them in the container, keep them going, and then plant them in the autumn or the spring. That is far better for them to get established in this type of border. Then we've got erodiums, and I've got two different types of erodium here, and you can see they're growing in slightly different ways. They've got different leaf and they've got different flower on them. So in actual fact, looking at these, I put those in the wrong way. That one should go in the front of the border because it's a much lower foliage. This one is a higher one. So this one is actually Katherine Joy, and it's got beautiful markings on the flower there, very tight curled grey foliage. It'll make a lovely mat. So that is a fabulous one there as well. And then look at the colour of this, absolutely stonking bright cerise pink. It's absolutely lovely. Calandrinia umbellata. Now, some of these are not going to be as long lived as others, but does that matter if they give you a good amount of enjoyment and everything else? This is a really lovely thing. It's got hairy leaves. It's really great. Flowers well. Loves the sunshine. Then we've got Wahlenbergia. This is Wahlenbergia alba marginata, and this has got huge, big, beautiful flowers which are white fading to blue, and it comes from this lower mound. It wants full sun, it wants free draining, just keeps on flowering, keeps on flowering. Cut off any of the dead heads and that'll be lovely. So that's just another little one, and I've put it at the front because it's wafty and it looks really great, but its foliage is low. And then the last one was this one. This is the Darcies hybrid. This is the Erodium, and this Erodium will get a bit bigger, and then it has these beautiful flowers on it as well. So all of these are fabulous. They're all wonderful things. A lot of these things you can divide and split. So the propagation in a lot of these is just taking small pieces off and putting them in. And you know, if you love propagation, just follow the link below. So having started with it sparsely planted with the foliage and the shape, then you can add in these other bits and pieces and encourage a bit more foliage, you know, so a bit more flower in there. That's absolutely fine. But if you like it with just the foliage, do that. All of these are alpines which like it to be hot, sunny and dry, so they should all work in your coffin border as long as you plant them either autumn or spring. If you try and plant in the middle of the summer when it is really hot and dry, that is when they start to fail. So that's a key thing to remember when you're doing these really tricky borders. Get the planting time right. Thank you very much for watching, and please do subscribe to the channel. If you want to watch another video of mine, YouTube thinks this one is perfect for you.